March 5th, 1291. The Persian Jewish vizier of the Mongol Empire and his family were murdered during the Feast of Tughachar, aka the Persian Jewish Red Wedding. Sad-ud-Dawla was a Persian Jew born around 1240 in the city of Abhar, Iran, which no longer has a Jewish community. This great statesman and physician was about 18 years old when Shaheen published his last book, Bereshit Na'ameh. And it's notable that each of Shaheen's books has lengthy chapters in praise of the Jewish prophets, but also the Mongol rulers of the time. By age 49, our main character, Sad-ud-Dawla, had worked his way up the ranks and become one of the most significant Persian Jewish historical figures of all time. As Grand Vizier under the Buddhist Mongol ruler, Sad-ud-Dawla established relations with Europe, improved conditions for minorities, and stripped corrupt princes of their wealth. This all meant that a lot of people hated him. So on March 5th, 1291, he was lured to a feast by his enemies. It's unclear if these were his anti-Jewish enemies or his anti-taking my corrupt money enemies, but in honor of Sad-ud-Dawla's probable last meal, I made some kosher Uyghur-style cumin lamb, which might have been part of our Kalimi vizier's final feast. And also this nuna barbari, which actually comes from a word used to describe Hazaras in Central Asia, which are an ethnic group descended from the Mongols. And yes, it does mean barbarian, and it is, I guess, offensive actually. Just imagine you're a Persian Jew in the Mongol court, eating this incredible cumin-rubbed lamb, listening to the wondrous rhymes of the recently deceased Shirazi Jewish poet Shaheen, enjoying the exotic tingle of the crushed Szechuan peppercorns on your tongue as your enemies suddenly pull out their knives and... Anyway, at the same time as Sad-ud-Dawla's murder, the Jewish quarters of Tabriz and Baghdad were ransacked, and other Jewish government officials were simultaneously strangled or killed by being dragged across the city by horses. But that wasn't the end. There was another Jewish vizier from Hamadan, only about 7 years younger than Sad-ud-Dawla. Rashid ad-Din survived as a vizier and as the Mongol Empire's all-time greatest historian, until 1318, when he was over 70 years old, at which point he was accused of poisoning the king and beheaded. Despite having converted to Islam, his severed head was paraded around town, accompanied with chants against the Jews, and 80 years later his body was even exhumed from the Muslim cemetery and buried again in the Jewish cemetery. Even now, 700 years later, there are plenty of remnants of Mongol culture in Iran. Despite the Mongols killing up to 90% of the country's population, Iranians still sometimes name their kids after Mongol rulers like Changiz. There's a Persian famous radio personality, Dr. Holakui, named after Hulagu Khan, one of the most destructive conquerors that Iran has ever seen. What else? The suffix Khan, or its female counterpart Khanum, are both Mongol words equivalent to Mr. and Mrs. in Persian. The word for camp in Persian is the Mongolian Urdu, which is where the name of the Urdu language comes from, and it's also ultimately the source of the English word horde. Horde as in a giant army, not as in, like, hoarding. So yeah, March 5th, 1291. Someone out there give me $100 million so I can finally make the Feast of Tughachar, the Persian Jewish Game of Thrones we've all been waiting for. HBO? Apple TV? Anyone?